Before they were Mouse Rat, they went by many names. Scarecrow Boat, Wet Dog Nightmare, Nothing Rhymes with Blorange, and many others.
The band has had a few different names over the years. We were Teddy Bear Suicide, but then we changed it to Mouse Rat. Then we were God Hates Figs, Two Doors Down, Department of Homeland Obscurity.
They call themselves the Guardians of the Galaxy.
As I move into the more recent movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, finding footage of them that I'm able to use without copyright issues is becoming more difficult, even though I made and own all the clips and songs that I use. So the reviews will have fewer clips to back up my points from here on out. Marvel Studios had already proved that they could turn characters who were popular only among Marvel Comics fans into superstars, so it was a surprise when they announced that the only non-sequel between the first two Avengers movies would be about a group of characters who even comic fans were largely unaware of, and in a movie that barely tied into the others. The Guardians of the Galaxy hadn't had a notable comic appearance since 2008. People were angry when Rocket Raccoon was announced as a bonus fighter in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. The movie was set almost entirely in space and featured characters who had nothing to do with the established Earth heroes, and while talking animals and plants are nothing new for movies, even live-action ones,
Ouch! What do you think you're doing?
talking animals and plants who are action heroes was a pretty wild idea at the time. Basically, if Marvel made a successful franchise out of the Guardians of the Galaxy, then nothing they'd ever do could be called risky again. Before we find out what wizardry the filmmakers pulled to make all of this palatable for John Q. Public, let's look at the least important part of every Marvel movie, the story.
Well, on my planet, there's a legend about people like you.
Marvel's second most famous Peter Quill, is abducted by aliens in 1988 and raised by space pirates. He grows into a treasure hunter, con artist, and attempted womanizer who wants people to call him Star-Lord but isn't nearly notorious or competent enough to warrant others using that nickname. One object he finds turns out to be a MacGuffin, and a bounty is placed on Quill's head. Bounty hunters and professional criminals Rocket, an upright walking talking raccoon, and Groot, a tree person who speaks a language only Rocket knows in which every possible sentence sounds like I am Groot, try to capture Quill at the same moment Gamora, an assassin working for but intent on betraying a religious radical named Ronan, attempts to steal the MacGuffin. They all get sent to space prison where they meet Drax the Destroyer, a guy determined to kill Ronan as revenge for the murder of his wife and daughter. The five team up, escape prison, and try to find a safe place to leave the MacGuffin. Ronan gets the MacGuffin and the Guardians of the Galaxy have to stop him from destroying the world. Well, a world. It's like our world, but some people are red and blue. Now, the appeal of movies like this is seeing a group of underestimated underdogs turn their weaknesses into strengths and prove everyone wrong about them by saving the day. I was just barely an adult when the movie came out, but I imagine this movie connected a lot with kids personally. Schools, parents, politicians, and other authority figures often give off the impression, often unintentionally, that troublemaking kids have no hope of ever doing anything worthwhile with their lives. I hope kids with bad grades, bad habits, family issues, or other problems enjoyed seeing a movie that refuted that idea. Outside of that, there's nothing that resonant here, it's just a funny space adventure with some quirky characters. That means that the characters have to work for the movie to work. Although I kind of feel like that's true of any movie, but whatever. The protagonist is Peter Quill, who is one of the more complicated heroes of the MCU. His gimmick is that since he left Earth in 1988 as a little kid, he fills in his dialogue with references to pop culture that existed by or before that year. His ship is named after Alyssa Milano, for example, and he carries around a Walkman with one cassette tape in it, which provides the soundtrack for the movie. The juxtaposition of the pop and rock soundtrack with the science fiction setting is amusing, and it's one of two movie soundtracks I actually own, the other being Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
This song is called I Am Sad, so very, very sad. Thank you.
But Peter is more than just a reference gimmick. He wants to be an infamous space outlaw, but can only ever pretend to act like one. He's a child's idea of Captain Kirk and Han Solo. That is far more interesting and funny than his time displacement gag. Chris Pratt fits very naturally into this style of comedy. Apparently Glenn Howerton was considered for the role, which would have been great too, but come on, we all know Howerton should be Star Fox.
No, Santar, you're misunderstanding me, bro.
I think I am.
Yeah, you are, because if the girl said no, then the answer obviously is no.
No.
But the thing is she's not gonna say no. She would never say no because of the implication.
Drax the Destroyer is played by Dave Bautista. Before the movie's release, many people, myself included, wrongfully assumed Bautista would play Drax as a simple tough guy character with little personality. For the billionth, trillionth time, casting directors prove they know more than us dorks, and Bautista actually acts in this movie. Drax's gimmick is that he takes every sentence literally. It's funny, but comedic timing and deadpan line delivery isn't the only acting on display here. Drax also has a maniacal, honor-bound warrior mentality and sadness over the loss of his family. Bradley Cooper provides the voice for Rocket, whose motion capture animation was modeled after the on-set performance of Sean Gunn, brother of director James Gunn and the actor who plays Kraglin Op Von Terry. Rocket's gag is the contradiction between his cute appearance and abrasive personality. He's quick to anger, he yells, and he doesn't just get mad, he seethes. But he also knows that everyone looks at him as less than them because of his animal body. It's implied that Rocket was an ordinary raccoon who was experimented on to walk upright, talk, and have human intelligence, but he doesn't know what raccoons are, so he feels completely alone in the universe, which is a point of pride when he's in a good mood and a point of self-loathing when he's in a bad one. Interestingly, Rocket is also the smart one of the team, capable of forming complicated plans and building useful weapons. Groot is the only member of the team who is 100% a good guy from the beginning. He's a criminal, sure, but mostly because his only friend and caretaker, Rocket, is one. He's voiced by Vin Diesel in Diesel's best role since The Iron Giant. I have no idea the process Diesel used to convey different ideas and emotions in 100 different variations on a single sentence, but he does. Christian Godlewski performed the motion capture acting that the VFX artist animated around, so a shout out to him too. Gamora, played by sci-fi movie royalty Zoe Saldana, is the serious one of the group. She has a past even more disturbing and tortured than the others, and is pretty humorless. While this can make her the team's stick in the mud, it's important because Peter helps her allow herself to feel emotions by exposing her to music and dance. The supporting cast is rich with likable one-note or one-off characters, but none of them are very notable. Benicio del Toro plays the Collector as the same weirdo del Toro plays in most of his movies. Lee Pace does a great job playing a character that, unfortunately, is barely more complicated than Malekith, so his skills are pretty much wasted here. Josh Brolin has a fun cameo as Thanos, which hasn't aged that well since his personality in Infinity War is completely different than it is here, and there's also a cameo by Lloyd Kaufman. By the way, this cameo in this movie gets my uncle to Kevin Bacon in less than 7 degrees. Isn't that awesome? Now, everyone and their dog who talks about this movie rightfully gives credit to the many actors, from the stars to the extras, who sat in the makeup chair for hours, multiple times as they had their makeup applied. As a huge fan of practical effects, especially makeup transformations, I really appreciated that the biggest movie franchise in the world, despite being absolutely saturated in VFX, still uses practical makeup when they can. And I cannot begin to imagine how boring it must be to sit in a chair for several hours at a time every morning and then go to work for several more hours and then stand around while the makeup is taken off. However, I almost never hear anyone mention the actual makeup artists at work. They're doing the same thing for hours every morning too, only instead of sitting down, they're applying makeup the whole time. And certain characters like Drax mean they have to get a lot of designs correct consistently. The Grand Budapest Hotel won the Oscar for Best Makeup and Hairstyling that year, and I really don't agree with that. Don't get me wrong, Grand Budapest Hotel is a better movie than anything in the MCU, but Guardians of the Galaxy's makeup far surpasses that movie's, at least to me. The action in the movie is mostly pretty good. There's plenty of spaceship battles, gunfights, and superpowered battles. Some people didn't like that Star-Lord defeated Ronan by dancing to distract him, and I can see that it comes off on the surface as the extreme version of Marvel's tendency to undercut dramatic moments with humor, but this isn't a scene to just look at on the surface. Think about it. The whole movie, Gamora is telling Peter that dancing isn't a useful skill, while Peter tells her that dancing can save the day, like how Kevin Bacon saves the day in Footloose. Midway through the final battle, Gamora even says that their team is just like Kevin Bacon. And after they try everything and every plan fails, Peter uses his own skill, the one no one valued, to save everyone. He saved the day with dancing, so he actually is just like Kevin Bacon. Peter Quill won not because he did the right thing to the MacGuffin or executed a plan properly, he won because he's Peter Quill, and no other character would have tried this at that moment. In fact, the only problem with this moment is that the song playing isn't Footloose. Guardians of the Galaxy is a great movie to just put on at any time. Almost every scene is funny, exciting, or emotional, and the few boring scenes where the villains talk to each other are all really short. One issue Marvel has is that their movies can feel similar to each other in tone and direction, and I think that this is less prevalent when they get a writer-director like James Gunn. I recommend this to James Gunn fans. It might not be as good as Super, but it's still got his distinct voice. I do want to give a huge thanks to Nicole Perlman as well, who wrote the original draft and was also one of the 5 writers for Captain Marvel. And apparently she was a script supervisor for Thor 1, although I have no idea what that entails. Of the individual franchises that make up the MCU, Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the few that can stand almost entirely on its own. It's worth a watch even if you don't like the rest of the MCU, unless of course the reason you don't like it is the prevalence of comedy.
Oh! You said it yourself, bitch. We're the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Ah, no, screw it. We are Mouse Rat.
Pit. I was in the pit. You were in the pit. We all were in the pit.
We have two credit scenes again, the first of which comes right at the beginning of the credits and shows Baby Groot selling millions and millions of toys. Yes, I have one. Okay, I have two. The second is a quick gag with Howard the Duck, because Disney just got the rights to Lucasfilm, and Howard the Duck was actually the first Marvel character to get a movie, produced by Lucasfilm. Really.
What do you let it lick you like that for? Gross.
Clearly, you've never made an omelet.